This video is going to be about Team Deathmatch. Team Deathmatch is the most populated game mode in pretty much every Call of Duty, but it is a game mode that a lot of people struggle to be good at because it's seen as random or like less consistent as to where the combat will be taking place, because like objective modes like Domination have very like generally more fixed spawn points, and you have a like better idea of where the combat is going to be taking place. But if you're good at reading the minimap and you have experience in the game, I think Team Deathmatch can be like very easy to predict spawns, predict the flow of combat. The first tip is going to be to use stealth. Since there's no objectives to dictate where the combat will be taking place, a lot of people just play off the minimap and looking for red dots, so you're going to want to have Ghost on, or whatever perk counters the UAVs, and you're also going to want to have a silenced weapon. You don't have to have these things, but if you wanted to do as good as possible, as easy as possible, I think these two things could be very helpful to you, because in Team Deathmatch a lot of people just play off looking for red dots on the minimap since there's no like fixed spawn locations based on whatever flag you control. I think that's pretty basic. A lot of people know to play stealthy in Team Deathmatch, like that's been a thing for years. But another thing that may be very common to some people that may be lost on newer players is to play the outside edges of the map when possible. Like I know sometimes you're going to have to go through the mid, but you want to reduce that as much as possible because you could be shot from so many different angles, and since the spawns are more kind of like random, you want to avoid that as much as possible. So playing the outside edges of the map, you only have to worry about like whatever is in front of you, for example. If the left side of the map is just the end, like the left side of me, there's just like the outside of the map, you know, I don't have to worry about that as a thing. So I could just worry about what's in front of me and what's to the right of me. And the same goes for like having teammates behind you, that way you don't have to worry about what's behind you. If you're coming off from an area where you know there's teammates behind you, you're very unlikely to get shot in the back. But if you have your back to where the enemies are coming from, you're very likely to get shot in the back. So you want to play the outside edges of the map and play around where your teammates are to like reduce how much you're getting shot in the back or the side. You want to have as many gunfights as you're prepared for, and playing the outside edges of the map really helps with this. Predicting spawns in Team Deathmatch is generally pretty easy for me because all you have to do is look at the minimap and look at where your teammates aren't. There's generally two main spawn points of the map, like either side, and one team usually has one and the other team has the other. So you just have to look at where your enemies are on the map. If they're like closing in on the enemy spawn, the spawn is likely to flip and you want to be on top of that so you don't get shot in the back. It's really just looking at where your teammates are and predicting it based off that. I really don't think it's that hard, and a lot of people overblow how hard it is to predict spawns in Team Deathmatch, because it really is. All you have to do is look at where your teammates are, look at what part of the map is clear, and that's likely to be where the enemies are spawning. Each map has their own kind of like flow of it. Like some maps have different spawn points, and it's not just like one side of the map versus the other side of the map. Some maps have like side spawn locations and such, but if you play the game mode a lot, you'll be accustomed to this rather quickly, and it'll be pretty easy for you to tell where the enemies are spawning based on where your teammates are. This next part also just comes from playing the game mode a lot, but you want to be aware of where the combat is often taking place so that you can flank it. Each map, like I said, has its own flow, and you just have to learn the maps by playing them a lot, and then you'll understand where the combat generally takes place. Like Crusher, for example, in Team Deathmatch, less combat tends to take place on the right side, like outside area of the map, and more of it takes place like in the inside, like factory and bridge area in the map. So you play around that, you can easily get in like a lot of easy situations. If you know where the combat is generally taking place, you could just take advantage of that and get a lot of kills on people who aren't even paying attention to you. I often like to use the less populated side of the map just to flank people, because less people, like I only have to worry about one or two people worrying about it generally, where the other side of the map might have like 3 or 4. So use the less populated area of the map to get flanks off, continue playing on the outside edges of the map and just shoot people on the back or side. It's very easy, and you just basically just learn the maps, learn where the enemies are playing, and then try to use the less populated areas of the map to your advantage. We talked earlier about predicting spawns based on where your teammates are, but you really want to predict the spawns flipping, because spawns will flip in Team Deathmatch quite often. You want to predict spawns flipping prior to them occurring. So you need to learn when the spawns are going to flip. I think this is pretty easy for me, just because it comes from looking at the minimaps and see where your teammates are. If the enemy team is spawning on one side of the map and you see teammates pinching it from 2 different locations, the spawns are very likely to flip. If we see 4 people going in that location, very likely to flip, so you could turn around and just play for them spawning on the other side of the map. And playing defensive outside the enemy team spawn, where you're just pre-aimed where they're going to be running out of, is super easy way to get a lot of kills. Just like flanking people, you're prepared for the gunfight when they aren't. They're just going to run right into your sights or fly up right into your sights, and it's going to be very easy kills. For score streaks in Team Deathmatch, I like to use recon streaks like UAV, counter UAV, advanced UAV, just so my team has an advantage in knowing where the enemy team is, and then we can get a lot of easy kills. Like I said, in Team Deathmatch, a lot of people just play off red dots on the minimap, so if your team has the information advantage, you're likely to have like an advantage in kills. Or I like to use something like UAV, Warden, and then like a higher streak like Thor, Apex, or RC8. And those, like the Warden and the Apex, or whatever the higher streak is, can get me a lot of kills. I really don't like to use the middling things like Scorchers, Bombardment, Trinity Rocket, or Sentry Gun. These can be very helpful, but they're generally not going to net you that many kills, and in a lot of instances, you'll waste more time using them than you will actually get out of them. something like the Scarab, for example, that could be very useful in something like Search and Destroy, where that one kill can make a huge difference in the game. But in Team Deathmatch, it's just going to waste you a lot of time for getting one kill, and the advantage really isn't that great. There's very rarely an instance where getting the one kill with the Scarab is going to give you like a huge advantage because you got a control of something on the map. Whereas in Search and Destroy, that's very true, and that's why the Scarab is a useful streak for Search. Same with the Trinity Bombardment and Scorchers, that like they very rarely get you like more than 3 kills, and getting more than 3 kills really isn't that helpful. So I like to either go with information advantage or something that'll actually get a lot of kills, like the Ward and Thor, RC8, or Apex. Next, we're going to talk about payloads, more importantly how I use them in Team Deathmatch, because in some objective game modes you might want to save your payload for like a huge play, like maybe you pop reactive to go help your team on the B flag. But in Team Deathmatch there's no objectives like that, and there's very rarely like key locations you have to take on the map that will have a huge swing on the actual game. So I just like to use my payloads to secure like score streaks, or if I'm caught out in a bad situation where I have to fight multiple people, I'll pop like reactive or use the claw then. But I generally just use them to secure score streaks more so than actual like tactically use that you would in a lot of objective modes. In objective modes you want to save them for certain like objective pushes or like taking key areas of the map, but in Team Deathmatch that really isn't as much of an issue, so I just like to use my payloads to secure my score streaks more so than anything. This final tip is just going to be about playing to the pace of your team. If you have a team that's playing really slow and you're playing aggressive, you're likely going to get caught out a lot and get a lot of deaths. Maybe you go 1-for-1 trading a lot just because the enemy team is going to be fighting you alone a lot more than they are based on your team. So like if you have like so many guys playing back like mid and then you're pushing up into the enemy's base, you're just going to be so alone, and they're very likely going to trade you unless you're just massively better than all of them. But if you're massively better than everybody, it really doesn't matter how you play. So we're talking about doing better versus people around your skill level. I think you want to play to the pace of your team. So if you have a slower team, maybe you want to play a bit slower. If you have an aggressive team, you don't have to play as aggressive. You could still just kind of play slow and play off the spawns flipping. But I think if you have a slow team, you need to be aware of that and play less aggressive and probably play more flanks. Whereas if you have a very aggressive team, you could also be aggressive and that would work out fine. That's kind of hard to understand if you don't like already play the game mode and understand what I'm saying. But like if you're getting traded a lot, you aren't actually, like the kills you're getting aren't that helpful. Because if you just keep going 1-for-1, you're not actually advancing your team's scoreline, and it's not really helping you get streaks or anything like that. It's just not very good. If you go 1-for-1, like it's not great. So you just want to play at the pace of your team, and I think you'll be doing much better. That's going to do it for this video. My key takeaways for this video is that you want to use stealth, play off your team's like positions on the minimap to predict where the enemies are, learn the key like important areas on the map for Team Deathmatch, and learn which lanes aren't populated, because then you could use those lanes to flank. Like I said, that's going to be it for this video. Thanks you for watching. Please subscribe if you're new here and comment down below what you thought of this video.